Okay, well, welcome to the session on OT-IT Convergence. I'm going to put this up and hope you read really fast. Standard disclaimer. Pleased to be here today to talk with you. My name is John Beyer. I work for AVEVA, and we're going to talk a little bit more about who AVEVA is, if you don't already know. My job at AVEVA is to run our Lighthouse Early Adopter program. So we test out products that are new and emerging with customers, and which is really fun and very rewarding. That said, they're not always perfect, so it's also not always perfect. I have my colleagues Glenn Moffitt and Dallas Swift from Databricks, and we're going to walk you through a little bit around the rationale behind AVEVA and our CONNECT platform integration with Databricks. And we're going to cover two use cases, real-world use cases that come out of our Lighthouse team. One is a cannot be named for now customer in the cement space. And another one is our good partner, Agnico Eagle, who we had a presentation earlier from them, but they've worked with us in our Lighthouse program to test out this connectivity, and we're going to show you a live demo. So with that, I'm going to get started. So first of all, if you don't work for AVEVA, can I see how many hands know who AVEVA is and what we do? All of you, pretty much. Wow, okay. So I don't have to cover this too much. I'm going to spend a little bit of time, though, getting you to understand the breadth of the data that is managed by the AVEVA suite. You can see in here, in this slide, AVEVA's been around in the various companies that form it for 50 years. And some of those companies newer, some older, but really in the industrial and the manufacturing space, 20,000 plus customers, billions of real-time data streams managed. And we affect everything from why lights are on here and why the grid is managed and we don't have too many brownouts anymore and that kind of thing, to why we have prescription drugs available. So our software is used across many different industries, many different verticals, from power to oil and gas to metals and mining, pharmaceutical manufacturing, pulp and paper, pretty much a lot of things that you use in your everyday life. Our software is used to either monitor or control or optimize. You all know who Databricks is, or you wouldn't be here, but they are a rapidly growing company in the enterprise data management space. And they share a lot of the tenets that go into AVEVA and how we think about software and managing data. And so we think about OT being more the AVEVA side of operational technology, operations data, running plants, running physical facilities. And then we label this IT, or coming from the enterprise space, all of the things that an IT group typically manages across a whole set of software. One of the things that I'd say that brought us to Databricks from AVEVA is Databricks very much believes in you got to have data first, quality data first in context to be able to have effective AI or analytics. And so that's something that we share and something we're working together to achieve. So when I look at who AVEVA is, we really came together from three main areas, and our portfolio is much broader than this. One is that middle Pi logo. The Pi system's been around for 40 years, monitoring real-time data streams from all across industries. It's estimated somewhere 50 to 60% of all the world's manufacturing and process data is kept in a Pi system someplace. So it's very prevalent. HMI and control data coming from the Wonderware side. That was the original name. It's, of course, we have brand names for it now, System Platform and others, but ultimately this is all about plant floor controls and helping operators operate the facility. Much more prevalent in the consumer goods space and discrete manufacturing spaces. And then AVEVA Engineering Suite, our unified engineering product, which really helps EPCs or engineering and project construction companies drive new facilities or redo existing facilities. So that's all about construction and planning and making sure that the plant can be built. We also, of course, can bring in all kinds of data from various standards, directly from devices, directly from other systems, including competitor systems, using standard protocols like OPC and MQTT and many others. And we bring all that data into our CONNECT industrial platform. CONNECT is an industrial SaaS platform meant to be a bridge to bring all the data together from individual plant facilities into one area where it can be used for all kinds of applications, both in the OT space, but also for data sharing, safe and secure data sharing in the enterprise space. And this is where our integration with Databricks comes in. When we think about Databricks and why it's so valuable, so many customers are using Databricks to bring data from a variety of sources into a data lake or a data store and combine that data into usable gold data. And if you think about this medallion architecture, which I'm sure many of you have heard of, you got to have really good data sets to do effective AI and analytics. So, one of the other philosophical things that I think we have started to really share and I think Databricks embodies, you know, when I think about data lakes, and most people in here, how many people have a data lake in their facility? Pretty much everybody, I'm guessing. What we see a lot is that data lakes haven't always delivered what they promised. And the reasons are many, but if you think about it, taking data from multiple disciplines and shoving it in one data store, especially if it doesn't have the context, and a lot of companies will tell you, oh, you get the context later. But once it's in the mire, it's hard to figure out what the context is. And so instead of a data lake, customers often have what I would call a data swamp. That's really hard to navigate, really hard to get data out of, and hard to get data that you trust out of it. And this is due to a lot of things, especially in the real-time world that we live in with an AVEVA, data duplication becomes a problem. If data is duplicated and you're just taking it from on-prem systems and duplicating it directly into the cloud without any regard for context, it's really hard to use. And the people who need to use it have no idea what it is and how to use the names. It can be incorrect. It may not be in sync. Data in the time series world is always changing. You might get late arriving data. You may have data that needs to be synchronized after you've already started your analysis efforts. You need to know that. And it takes a lot of curation then after the fact. If you take something that's a mess and you try to put it back together again after the fact, then everybody's trying to do that separately. The converse to that, and where I think data lakes are going, is more of a chain of lakes, or a data fabric, many people are calling this now, where the data stays close to the store and close to the data source, where you have purpose-built domains to reduce the complexity and to bring the context, but you don't duplicate all the data, you simply register it and have a central point for governance and security. So this is something that caught our eye with AVEVA when we started talking to Databricks in what they were working on with the Unity catalog. A centralized place for governance, security, metadata management without forcing all of the data to be in a single data lake or data store. And you can start to see where things like SAP or HR records in Workday or ServiceNow tickets can be integrated into a single application along with the industrial data, and it becomes very, very powerful. So this is what we stepped into in our integration. We built a product-level integration to integrate these two platforms. To do that, we bring in all of those industrial data sources into CONNECT, and we, of course, have our own visualization and analytics, and we handle all the data storage and context storage in CONNECT. Databricks, we share the data through Delta Sharing Protocol. Again, another thing that we love about Databricks is that they're focused on standards and making open protocols, open content standards, open source standards even. Things like the Unity catalog are now open source. Anybody can take it and use it. This is super powerful. And we think it's the way that compute has to go in the future. And so when we start bringing all that enterprise data into Databricks and all the industrial data into CONNECT, we open up all kinds of use cases for doing things like production reports and dashboards. Of course, data science and AI becomes very much easier to do because you keep all the context and the data's trustable. It's easy to run things like a unified operations center that's in the middle of your operation. You can watch everything that's going on and not just plant by plant. So this is really powerful concept when you bring these two data sets together and how many different use cases it can support. So again, this for us is how the integration actually works. We curate data sets in CONNECT. Customer can point and click configure the curation. What does that data look like? And we publish it through the Unity catalog into Databricks as an external table. Now, one of the other things that really comes to life here is that that table is not actually a copy of the data. It's just pointers into the data that bring you back into CONNECT. So it's in Databricks terms, this means it's an external table. So you write a SQL command, you get data back, and it's actually pulling the data out of CONNECT to get that data for you, ensuring that the data has full high integrity, because we keep all that data in sync with the on-prem stores. So we get high integrity data. It's always kept up to date, even if it arrives out of order in the original source. We have the native contextualization that allows the data to be understandable by people working in the enterprise space who maybe don't know control systems. We also have storage efficiency because it's not duplicated. We're storing it in a highly optimized format, and Databricks is accessing it. And then this is all done as a product. So it's streamlined deployment. You simply point, click, configure, and you're up and running in minutes, not hours or even days or weeks. So we're pretty happy with this, and we've been testing it out with some customers. We're going to cover a couple of these here. The first one is the anonymized user company here, and this company is actually doing very well with their implementation. We just didn't quite get to the point where they were ready to put their name on it, but this is a cement making company that does construction materials, cement, wallboard, you name it. Trading network close to 100 countries, 15 cement plants, 260 ready mix plants. They're a big producer. That said, they've struggled with bringing all the data from these different plants in a consistent way into the Databricks environment. So they've had data fragmentation across facilities. They lack a central repository right now. They need something that's very repeatable and scalable that they can implement by the OT team without having to go and make a big project. They want to bring new use cases very quickly, and they want to keep it all with low maintenance costs. So this is where a product level integration really makes sense. Their architecture, data comes up from a AVEVA Pi server. Now there's a Pi server in every facility, every one of those plants. They connect up through a piece of product software called the Pi to Connect agent. It comes up into our Connect data services. That's where they can curate that data and the time series data. That Pi to Connect agent keeps the data up to speed, make sure it's correct up in the cloud. And then that curated data is shared using the Delta sharing protocol into Databricks. Now, this particular customer has their own data science, their own algorithm for making the cement high quality, for getting the most out of their production equipment, and out of their supply chain, because the different source ingredients they get for the cement may come from different supply chain sources. So they have their special sauce that runs in Databricks, and then they bring recommendations every minute back to Connect Data Services. It goes through our Connect Pi agent and down into Pi, where operators can see set point recommendations on how to set the machine and keep it running at its most efficient. So this closed loop integration with the cloud is really, really powerful. And we see this at multiple customers where AI and data science is applied, but it's brought all the way back down to the plant floor and where it's implemented. So kind of the results of this are really coming down to data prep time cut by 50%, much quicker data AI workflows, and ability to do use case after use case after use case in a common way. Now that they have the pattern, it's easy to rinse and repeat. And ultimately getting more out of their machines. 5% fewer stoppages through the machine learning algorithms, through optimizing runtime and then one of the other things that we don't list on the slide, but they're getting higher quality, measured quality out of what they produce. So making sure that it's consistent and it's the best quality they can. So with that, I'm going to ask my colleague, Glenn Moffett, to come up and talk about Agnico Eagle.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John. Good morning, everyone. My name's Glenn Moffett. Can you hear me now? All right, try that again. Good morning, everyone. My name's Glenn Moffett. I'm part of AVEVA. I'm in John's Lighthouse team. And with my colleague Jesse, we had the opportunity to work with Agnico Eagle on a Lighthouse project for the integration with Databricks. And Agnico were actually the first customer to try this integration out between them, so really appreciate the time they spent on it and the feedback we got from them. A little bit of an overview of the company. I heard this morning from Ray, they're actually the second largest gold producer now. I think they made 3.78 million ounces last year, and they have, I believe, 10 mines across four countries. So we worked with their digital transformation team. We've got Ray here who leads that team. And some of the issues that they talked about, or the challenges they had, was they had multiple data sources. So obviously they had their data in the AVEVA Pi system, but they had other data sources as well. They wanted to bring those data sets together so they could realize some of their specific use cases that they wanted to achieve. They'd already started doing some integration with the Connect platform by using our REST API. So they were programmatically accessing that and pulling that data into Databricks. But of course, there were challenges with that. They have to write code. They have to maintain that code. If someone wants some changes or wants a new table or a new view, they've got to go and edit that. There's also challenges around dealing with the data that John talked about as well. What happens with gaps in data, if data is late arriving, and et cetera. So when they heard about that we had this integration, of course, they were interested to actually try that out and see if that was going to be beneficial for them. You know, the actual goal coming out of it would be, okay, does this integration make their life easier? Does it minimize the amount of data management work that they have to do? So the data transformation team have a number of use case areas. You know, they kind of span across operations views, analytics and machine learning models, and also reporting too, in terms of KPIs. So a lot of different types of use case scenarios that they were trying to work with. And again, there was that challenge of bringing the data together. So they had the AVEVA industrial Pi data, and they needed to bring that together with maybe it's financial data, production data, or lab assay data as well, wanting to unify that data, again, to meet some of those use cases. Drilling into one of those use cases specifically is the haul truck analytics one. They had a number of scenarios there around asset health, the energy efficiency, and also route optimization as well. One of the use cases specifically, which was around the asset health, is by analysing the data, they're able to look and determine that fuel usage could be an indicator of a problem with a truck. And of course, they're able to do that by combining the data that came from the AVEVA system with some GPS data from a vendor system. So bringing that data together to understand what the truck's doing. Is it idle? Is it going on an incline or decline, etc.? And then be able to do that analysis. And they would come up and determine that fuel was an indicator in certain scenarios for that. In terms of what the architecture looks like, again, very similar to what John showed earlier for that other customer, so that they have the trucks or other types of equipment that are bringing the data into the AVEVA Pi server, which is their data management platform. And it's not just the sensor data that comes in there. Once that data comes in, they're doing a lot of work to contextualize that. So obviously, you might have a lot of telematics data. It doesn't mean much if it's just one value by itself. But by associating that with other related data into assets, into hierarchies, adding metadata to describe maybe what sort of truck it is, what type of equipment it is, and then also calculations, that's really enriching that data set. So now you've quite a rich data set far beyond just the raw telematics data that you were bringing in. Once that comes into the Pi system, you'll see that first step there. As John mentioned as well, it's a configuration step to decide, okay, which asset, what information do I want to cascade up into CONNECT? And of course, all that intelligence, that contextualization, that metadata, and those calculations, that data also can cascade up into CONNECT as well. Once it's up in CONNECT, end users can then go and configure the shapes or the tables that they want to see and configure. And then that's then made available in Databricks via the Delta sharing that John talked about earlier. And then, of course, the use case I talked about with the haul trucks, there's the AVEVA data, but there's that third-party data coming in as well. So there's number 3 over there brings that data into the system, and then of course then they can do those analytics with those combined data sets. And while not specific for this use case, it was for John's, there's an option, of course, that they could write the data back from Databricks back into CONNECT for use in CONNECT, or possibly write it back down to the AVEVA Pi server for use down there as well. You may notice there's a lonely truck on the right-hand side. If you did notice that, you get a point for something later at least. But that's a lead into the next slide about one of the challenges that we face with data and gaps with data. So especially with these trucks, they can be on out in the mine. They do have 5G in their underground mine, but there might be a time when a truck or a piece of equipment is located in a certain location and it has no connectivity. So therefore, that means the data may be late arriving. The data could be missing for maybe just a shift, a couple of shifts, or maybe days when the data will not be available from a piece of equipment. Also, there could be requirements where you need to rerun a calculation. Maybe I run a calculation for a week, it looks good, and then I want to rerun that calculation for a longer period of time. So that means you're getting new values created. Those older calculations are now out of date, and you need to update those. And the third one can be around the idea of lab samples as well that might come in delayed or at a later period of time. And one bonus one that I thought of as well is around some systems might send you the current data, but if they're offline for a period of time, that historical data may come in later. So you're getting out of order data as well. So essentially a lot of challenges with data, and all these are handled by those two components. So that component that's taking the data from the Pi server up to CONNECT, cascading that data up, that handles all those scenarios. And similar for when you create the virtual table, all these scenarios are dealt with and managed as well for that. So to kind of wrap it up for what we were able to do with Agnico Eagle, or what they were able to do, certainly from their point of view, it was a lot easier for the users. The users were able to just go in and configure these tables in Connect, and then they appeared after some time in Databricks. So it made life a lot easier for them. They didn't have to worry about managing code with the REST API, so worrying about that. And as I mentioned on the previous slide, the issues that they have with late arriving data and other types of data issues. And so what that means now is that they can now focus on use cases around dealing with data from AVEVA and also from other platforms as well from that. And I think with that, I'll hand it over to Dallas to give us a demonstration. Thanks, Dallas.
All right. Okay, thank you, Glenn. Hi, everyone. My name is Dallas Swift. I'm a solution architect at Databricks. I work with clients in the manufacturing and industrial space. My background, actually, I got my career started at a company called OSI Soft, which was acquired by AVEVA. So it's really exciting to be up here and bring things full circle for me. What I want to share is a live demo of this integration between the AVEVA Connect platform and Databricks. Because really what I want to drive home is how easy it is to set up. We're talking a matter of minutes, right? Because in the past, when folks have been building, trying to build their own or doing things like that, it's not easy, right? And it doesn't, natively handle things. You're copying the data, you're managing code, you're building up technical debt. And so, again, really seeing is believing. And so what I'm going to show here is exactly how easy this is to set up. All right, so let us. Okay. Right, so I'm going to start in the Connect Data Services platform. This is, at this point, right, you have set up all your integrations between your on-prem systems and Connect. You've got that data flowing. There's a lot of great tools that AVEVA provides for this. So I've got my data streams. They're coming up. Data's in Connect. And now, as a OT data engineer, someone managing the platform, right, I want to make this data available to my data scientists, right? They want to build some model, look at this data, and combine it with some of their enterprise data sources that are already on Databricks. So where you can start is by coming into analytics and first building a data view, right? Because right now you got a bunch of different streams. So we want to kind of organize these streams, figure out which we want. So I'm going to come in here. And I've already created one, right, called compressor data view. I'm just going to come in and edit it so you can see, what to set up here. But what we have, right, and really when I set this up, all I did was, gave it some name, gave it, a query, right, which is, in this case, I was looking at tags from a series of compressors. So we can actually, come down to the query, and it gave it a shape, right? So, when I was was in OSI Soft, and as a data scientist, I liked working with the raw data. A lot of data scientists like working with raw data. So you can set up, this data view shape is narrow, so you get all those observations, everything in Connect, right, is going to make its way over. You can also do a standard view, right? If, and a lot of times I hear this from data engineers, they don't want to deal with kind of time alignment, things like that. So AVEVA will handle all that for you as well. So I'm going to, and then we see here, right, we have the data. It's pulling the data we want. That's great. So that's step one. And again, this takes a couple minutes. Step two is to create what's called a virtual table, right? And here we're basically putting a time box, right? We know what tags we want or what streams we want. We know the shape of the data we want the data to be in, but now we want to figure out the time box that we want. So here I'm just going to click Create Virtual Table, click the data view I want. Yep, that's the right one. So I can hit Next. And here, right, we're going to be able to see, give it some name, right, table name. And do I want the interpolated data? Do I want the raw data? Again, this is up to you, right? A lot of times data scientists like raw data, but if you're building reports or combining with enterprise data, you can of course rely on Connect to handle a lot of stuff for you. You can also get data from a specific time window, right? Maybe you want to do a root cause analysis for a specific event that happened, right? So give me a certain box of data, right? Or maybe you want to have a time extending window where you start at one point and continually kind of get new data as it comes in. So that's kind of step 2. Step 3 is sending that data to Databricks, right? And so that's what's called a share. And there's not a ton to set up this connection, right? You just come in, you hit create share, you give it some name, and give it an identifier. If you are familiar with Databricks Unity Catalog, this is basically you point it to your metastore, and that's it. Then you hit publish. I'm not going to do that just here, but I will highlight, right now we've got these 2 tables, and after you hit publish, when you come over to Databricks, right, you'll see those same 2 tables in my Databricks environment. And again, this takes minutes to set up, and there's no code to maintain. And now I can come into my table, hit sample data, and we see those same values that we saw on that data view, right, are showed up here. And what's key is this data actually lives within Connect. And so you can rely on AVEVA to handle things like the very late arriving data, interpolations, anything like that. But as a Databricks user, as a data scientist, I can now work with this data like it's any other sort of Delta table, anything else in Databricks, which is really exciting because also you get all the kind of governance and lineage that as power users of Databricks will be comfortable with. So even an example of something you can do with this, right, and how do we get value from this? I can come over to this data pipeline that I built, where we see in the bottom left here, there's this sensor data that we're getting in from AVEVA, which is great. We can use this, and we can combine it right with other kind of enterprise information, maybe something you get from SAP or geospatial data that you're pulling in, anything, there's a lot of different sources of information. Right, and you can combine this, ultimately surfacing it in this gold layer, where you're bringing in sensor data, you're bringing in asset information, you're bringing in enterprise information, and now in this case, right, I can come into something like a Genie space and have a natural language interface for this data. So in this case, I have all these questions in advance, right, but you can come in, right, and I want to look at my fleet of compressors. And I want to see specifically what's going on with compressor 3, use this natural language interface. I see, it looks low. But I can continue this conversation, right, not looking just at this sensor data from AVEVA, which is very useful. But now I can kind of go further and look at, work order history, right, repair history. That seems, maybe a little long, right, 164 days since it's been looked at. Maybe are there any parts that are due for replacement, right? And now I, ask the data. And it'll tell me, right, here's a part that's due for replacement, and because I want to kind of plan my financials around that, and I have that data in Databricks as well, you can come in and see the repair price, right? And, there are so many different use cases, things you could do with Databricks, in addition to this, AI, ML. I won't get into all of that, right? But really, the key points here is you're able to drive home really powerful use cases by bringing together the IT and OT sides of the world. It's really exciting to see it, happening. We've been talking about it as an industry for a very long time now, but really we're getting there, and it's a really exciting partnership. And so, that is essentially what I wanted to show. And that's what I wanted to show, right? How easy it is to set up. We will have a Q&A in a second. And with that, come back to the end. Some contact information for our friends at AVEVA, QR code as well. And I'd like to thank everyone for your attention. John, Glenn, come on up, and we're happy to answer any questions.